Welcome to the Difference Makers Show, your source of inspiration through stories that make a difference. Today's show's topic is My Journey to Transformation Through the Healing Power of Music, featuring guest AJ Goodwin of Waterfall Music. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I want to ask you, in this turbulent world, how do you think we could find peace, compassion, and love? How can music heal us? What is the revolutionary music that's changing millions of lives around the country, and how can we experience it? Well, today you're going to get the answers to those questions. Hi, I'm Lynn Sanders, your host at the Difference Makers Show, and I am very excited to introduce you to our guest. His name is Arion, or AJ Goodwin, the co-founder and executive producer of Waterfall Music. And his life was transformed through meeting Paul Lloyd Warner, a composer who has been creating amazing music, healing people's lives around the world. AJ's company is dedicated to bringing inspiration, transformation, and healing to the planet. He's leading the legacy of Paul Lloyd Warner's foundation and providing life-changing music, visual media, as well as literary media. So without further ado, let's welcome AJ Goodwin.
Well, pleasure to enjoy this wonderful space with you and the background. One of the first pieces I ever heard was this beautiful piano solo that was wafting over into this art show back in 1990. And wow, it just touched my heart. And as a young artist, I knew that this would be something that I could use as the inspiration in the background. So I'm just going to give you a taste of that as you're listening, and there's so much more to come.
Thank you. You know, I wanted you to give us a little bit of your story first, to share how meeting someone like Paul Lloyd Warner changed your life. We all meet different people in our lives. Sometimes we're lucky enough to meet someone whose energy, whose connection with us becomes very deep. So tell us a bit of your story.
Yeah, Lynn, you know, back in 1990, I was a young, frustrated artist that would drive all the way down into Burbank and then come back up into Ventura. And I had this small little one-car garage, and I was doing my foam art sculptures there and learning the world of the computers and selling Macintosh way back when they had the little 9-inch screens. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that drive just really got to me, and seeing all the smog and what was going on. And, you know, also a little bit of my background right before that is, you know, I've grown up around the ocean, and I've had such a deep love for our environment, you know, and my background is more in marine biology, ichthyology, oceanography, worked on a dive boat. And, you know, I had all these wonderful experiences, and I taught on the ocean, and I had the experiences underneath the water. Yeah. And, you know, over the years, I just found that was part of my niche, is that I love to share something so unique as the power of the ocean. And then, of course, I met Paul Lloyd Warner right there at this art show. And that changed my life because, you know, I wanted to go and break into the art shows with my rubber foam art. And I wanted to go around and have more clients and to go and create more and just have a lot of fun with the work that I was doing. And then when I met Paul Lloyd Warner, it changed everything. Next thing you know, he flew me up to his home a couple of weeks later after the meeting. And, you know, I remember sitting in the front living room, and he said, you know, I've been having my piano tuned for weeks, usually 1 and 2 times per week, the piano tuner would come up, and you just happen to be here exactly at the time that I'm ready for my next recording.
Wow.
I remember in that moment, I told him, I says, you're going to create the greatest piano compositions of your life right now, in this moment. He's like, yes, I will. And I was mesmerized. I never saw a maestro, a modern day master with his eyes closed and creating such beautiful music right before me. I remember I was actually crying. It just touched me so deeply and it moved me like I've never experienced before.
Wow, I would like you to let us know, what is it about Paul's music that touches you so deeply? Because we all love, people listening to this, I'm sure, are music lovers. What makes his music unique?
The very first art show I went to, of all things, it was right across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, I love that. It's beautiful.
Yes, and we were over up in Marin, passing that, and we go up into Jenner, which is a beautiful coastal art show, and it comes out right next to the Russian River. And this woman came up and she said, "This is the music that saved my life." And I'm going, wow, well, I'm an artist. I want to use music for my inspiration. And she was tapping on the music and she said, "This is the music that saves people's lives. And I'm one of them. I'm here today. I had breast cancer and I was on my deathbed." That was her words. "I was on my deathbed and had chemo. My hair had fallen out and I was just withering away." I go, "Wow, well, what'd you do?" She goes, "Well, somebody came in my family with a cassette back in 1990 and some headphones and a cassette player. And they go, here, may this help you in your last days. We love you. And we hope that this music," it was called The Miracle of Dolphins for piano. And what Paul had did in just this particular album, he was taking the tone of dolphins, slowing them down and finding the same notes on the piano. From that, these compositions came into the most beautiful style that as she was listening to it, she became the music and she became in the frequency and the balance that healed her. And it was her own healing. And she goes, "I wish I knew the man that made this music." And I'm looking over at Mr. Warner, very first art show we were ever together. I said, "This is Mr. Paul Lloyd Warner right here." And she's like, "Oh my God, Maestro, you saved my life. You saved my life." And he was so humble. He says, "Ma'am, it wasn't me that saved your life. It was truly your own will to live. And my music, the gift from God, I was able to be the vessel in that channel that actually gave you the opportunity to make those healings." And she goes, "Yes, but you need to meet my husband and we're going to do it right now." And so they took off, went to a lunch. And of all things, I was left alone. The very first art show I ever did with them, I sold over $1,000 of cassettes and people were buying bricks of them. "Here, I think you should have the whole collection." "Oh, yes. And I'll take a second for my family member." And he came back and he goes, "Wow, I've never sold this much in a single day." And from that, it just began this whole journey of us with many, many stories of how people have used the music. And it's just been one thing after another, because, people today, they're burned out, they're stressed,
Right, exactly.
There's chronic pain, they're not able to focus. People are bombarded with so many things to do and the anxiety builds. And sometimes you just don't find that time to relax. And there's many ways that we do it in our alternative therapies, from acupuncture and aromatherapy and herbal medicines and homeopathy, massage. A lot of people use his music for massage. Your meditation, music therapists use it, your spiritual healing, yoga. And, by having this music available for the alternative health practitioners, it's given them a really nice body of work where in these last 30 years, we've gone over 100 locations where Mr. Warner has been able to compose his music at the sites of nature. We'd get done with an art show or a festival or a fair, and we would go right back into nature. We had a whole recording studio built into the motor coach. And sometimes, like in Yosemite or places like that, we were able to go and co-create music at the sites of the beauty of nature.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I want to point out something you mentioned very casually, but it's very important. And that is that Paul goes to locations. I hope all of you heard this, creating music in the location. I thought it was fascinating. I didn't realize that he had changed or modified the sounds of dolphins to put that into his music, because we're
Yes.
all energy beings, as you know, AJ, and all of it, many people here listening can learn from this. So I would wager to say that by Paul being in the sites that are inspirational to him, he's picking up that energy, right, from that site.
Completely.
Tell us some of the different places that he has gone to. You mentioned there's a number of them.
Gosh. When we would get done with an art show, let's say we were in Utah, we'd finished this beautiful show. We made a ton of money selling his cassettes and CDs. And we'd say, okay, on Monday, let's go and ship most of the money back. Let's save a little bit and let's go to Zion. Let's go to Grand Canyon. Let's go to, the Sierras. Let's go to Yosemite. Let's go to these most beautiful places in between, set up the keyboards. We had deep cycle batteries. We had a very large motor coach, about 37 feet, and a van that towed behind. Wow. And, when we were up in the Northwest, the trees were so close together in the campground, the motor coach could not fit through to turn from one little road to another. So we had to keep it sometimes on the very outskirts. And then we would undo the van, put all the rolling rack mounts inside with deep cycle batteries and inverters, and just had all the power, silent power, so he could go deeper into these locations and let the divine nature around him inspire from the location.
So, and that's important too. He just takes what he feels and hears from the higher power, God, universe, and composes on the spot. That's what you're saying.
So true. Yes. So the music has been inspired and recorded live in nature. And from that, only a poet in love with the piano could be at the level that we're going to be hearing just in a few. Yeah. And I am just so honored to actually witness and birth the music over these years. We've created over 30 orchestras, from the most classical orchestra to the most poetic harp and modern choirs, and of course the piano, and sometimes with strings. But the fun part is actually seeing the experience happen in the moment, and then to bring it back to the shows. And now we'll bring it back into the many different ways that the media carries it. And we'll be able to give people this ultimate solution of healing and relaxation that mimics nature in its best.
Oh, it's beautiful. Why do you think music heals us? Because you're going to play some music for us. And I think you mentioned that does he categorize music for different situations for people, like this woman who had cancer? Does he say this is for people in a very life-threatening situation? How does that work?
Well, depending on, who is listening to it, again, if it's a therapist or somebody like that, now they have full libraries of over 150, 200 tracks available to them that they can use in the different alternative therapies that they're working with. Now, if it's just a normal individual, put on your headphones sometimes and close your eyes and meditate. That way you can contemplate life and go into deeper healing and let the vibration and the compositions, the poetic style of his original themes really touch you. And then that way you'll hear his impressionism, and you'll hear the body of some of these big full scope orchestras down to the quiet flutes and harps that are there. And what we're finding is that, there's many types of music in the world. So when, we need something for deep focus, we're finding that it's able to open up the cognitive mind, the deep critical thinking when we need to have that focus. We're finding that the students or people that are doing research, that you're able to go deeper on your research, you're getting higher or lower levels of stress and anxiety because your mind is in that same frequency and vibration that we get even in the walk in nature when you're on a vacation. you actually get that. And now you have 21st century music that comes in the new age of our time. And it is really the progressive classical music to be brought out so humanity can be awakened with great music that will last here for years to come.
Oh, I love that. So when people are deciding what type of music to pick, is it categorized by the places that the music was created in? How do we decide which one?
Yeah.
You can play some and let us know how
like our Oceans album. Mm-hmm. This would be the cover of our Oceans album. On the Mountains album, this is the cover that we would see from the Mountains album. If we see it from the Waterfalls album, this is what we would see. Beautiful. If we would have a Deserts album, we would see the one with the cat. And, remember, it took years to create these themes and these big symphonies. It didn't just happen always overnight. This is part of the Stars album.
Wow.
And this is an earlier one, which was a similar background of the Symphony for Humanity, which now the cover has changed, and you'll see that online. Actually shows me leaping out into over next to the sunset. So could you play some of the music samples for us? I know everyone would probably love to experience Paul's music. Yeah. Okay, here's a track from the American Symphony, and it's also in the Healing. No, it's actually on the Healing Power of Music and the Oceans album.
Thank you. Does this have a name?
This one's called Rapture. From a piece like that, we would take you into Spring Waterfall. Mm-hmm. And then we would take you like into a modern choral piece with violins. This one's actually found on Mountains and also on an American Symphony. The American Symphony actually started us on the journey, and we didn't know really what to call the music at that time. And so an American Symphony by Paul Lloyd Warner, traveling to the most beautiful sites and to compose at these sites and be inspired. And then over the years, the music has really grown. And now, we hear these big big symphonies. Like let's say if we were over at Yosemite. And I'm going to do something. I'm going to go into it a little bit, and it's going to go into the deeper horns and strings. One thing you'll notice is that he has beautiful, recognized passages that only could be from the Paul Lloyd Warner effect.
It's really beautiful. Is this, I have a quick question on this. This is really lovely. Is this all composed on an electronic keyboard? Does he ever bring in additional musicians or singers?
There has been in the past, and there will be more in the future. One thing that Paul has done, though, is he'll use multiple keyboards set up together. And by
Ah,
doing that, he's able to conduct, compose, perform, and engineer everything in a single play. There's no mixing, no multi-tracking, no sequencing,
wow.
no dubbing. Now, if any of you are musicians or in production, usually you lay many tracks down and you build upon it, build upon it, build upon it. Well, Paul has always felt that as a pianist, hearing those bright and beautiful piano themes, you hear it in the moment exactly as it is. And when you hear a symphony, you sit down and you're watching the LA Philharmonic, the London's symphony, these great orchestras of our time, the San Diego Symphony, which we listen to much. You hear it exactly as it is in that moment. And so Paul has done a great job to use multiple keyboards, and by stacking them together, he can get woodwinds and strings and harp and choirs and piano and a full other array of violins and another patch, and deeper as he's hitting the notes, depending on how deep and how hard the pressure sensitive keys are been designed, then he can call up other instruments. And
Wow.
he has just mastered this technique over the years. And we are just so proud of the work he has accomplished.
Oh, that is remarkable. I didn't realize how he crafted the music. You may know this or not, I don't remember if we talked about it, but I had worked years ago at a commercial music company. So I'm familiar with layering, as other musicians here are as well. It's just the fact that he composed multi musical parts all simultaneously, all from the divine, to me
Yes.
is definitely a remarkable achievement. So, I'm wondering, what was the latest news or some of the most exciting news that you told me that I'd love you to share about Paul Lloyd Warner and his work with the Smithsonian and National Geographic?
Yes. Over the years, as we've had our music out there, and as we put it now into like CD Baby is this main distribution hub, and as we're sort of maneuvering through and learning how to do some of the marketing and not, we were able to go and get a deal with the National Geographic, and they then had it with and I think it was Smithsonian and the National Geographic together. They did a whole series of work using Paul's music in the background. And over in Europe, they are doing a television series, which is called The Secrets of the Great Barrier Reef.
Mm.
And of all things, my love is the oceans. So, it goes really close to my heart to have something where they're using specific tracks that people can hear in the background that relate to the oceans or relate to our carbon-based planet and what we're doing to make a difference. Because many people don't know that 40 to 90% of the oxygen comes from our microscopic creatures, the phytoplankton, the smallest
Wow.
creatures of the ocean. And you'd have to get a microscope really to see them. And worldwide, they have been here for eons of time. Yet within our lifetime alone, we have been able to extract the gook out of the earth that has been there deep under the oceans and deep into the land. And we're able to make oil and gas and diesel and plastics and rubbers and cellophanes and many things like that. Yet in some parts of the world, the third world countries especially, they don't know what to do with all this. The islands are overloaded with more plastics and trash. Between here and Hawaii, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is now twice the size of Texas.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
it's massive. And we have some amazing environmental organizations. The Ocean Cleanup is one. And the Oceana with Ted Danson is another, where they're protecting our oceans and making a difference. And the ocean cleanup is really important because they're figuring out how to go out into the open ocean where this mass amount of trash exists. And they're going up into the rivers, and they're able to use specific machines and that to collect the trash, and then they're bringing it back, and they're able to either recycle it or do something where the trash has now been removed. And this is really big in our lifetime because plastic can take way beyond our lifetime, hundreds and sometimes maybe even thousands of years for plastic and rubbers to break down. And when it does, it turns into microplastics. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and everything in the food chain, from the whales down to the phytoplankton, are feeding on it.
Right.
So we're having major issues, and that's just one of them, And, one of the other things that's really, really important, deforestation. We're clear cutting our trees faster than ever before, sometimes to make a zone for our cattle. And of course, the amount of water that it takes just to feed one animal is hundreds and thousands of gallons before it can actually be harvested into what we would consider our meat, rather than having alternative methods where we can create massive zones of crops, and then to have that where the crops are creating more oxygen because they're absorbing the carbons and releasing the oxygen back into the atmosphere. So our oceans and our land are very important to humanity, and we just have to have better understanding of how we're using our resources and what are we doing with these resources after we've used them. One-time plastics is a big, big problem.
So how can Paul Lloyd Warner's music, or the foundation, or Waterfall Music, address these environmental problems, which I know are growing more and more? We're seeing it with climate change. What are you doing as an organization to bring more awareness, just helping solve these problems?
Yeah, I would say the biggest part is education. Mm-hmm. We have to teach our teachers, our parents, our families, our children. Our children are now growing up in this, and they just don't know any better. And we have to be the mentors and the stewards on the planet to inspire them and to show them the chemistry breakdown and what does it do? Because if we throw a pebble in the water, it's going to create a ripple effect. If we throw another pebble over here, it's going to create another ripple. And then those ripples actually merge into each other. And where that merging into each other is where it can either destroy or impact to create new life. And we have to find ways to create a better level of understanding from the core of our education and our thinking, our mindfulness. What are we doing in our own environments at home? Mm-hmm. Having beautiful music, because there's a lot of different varieties of music out there. And Paul's music happens to be the one that really opens us up and to have greater contemplation. We're finding that the their grades are going up, they're remembering more. They're able to actually have greater skill sets. We're finding parents that use the music during the birthing, that they're having greater release, a greater peace, and the music has a heartwarming feeling to it. So it really opens us up from our hearts. And that's what we want. We want to have more time and more freedom in this lifetime. And time is a really good example. TIME could stand for our talents and how we're talented. The I could be what is inspiring and what intrigues us. What is the intersection that opens us up, and what is so interesting that we can move ahead in life. Mm-hmm. And the M would be what is magnetic to us, because everybody has a little bit different scope on life. different cultures, different varieties of people, different foods that we eat, and the mentality of time. We have to see that we have only a short period of time, it seems like, each and every day. And with that, our mental attitude and keeping that focus, and that way we can be inspired from the talents that are around us. And with that, we can say, oh, hey, that's something nice. I can add that into my life, my culture, my family background. Mm-hmm. And then the E would be not just empowerment, but education. What can we do to help, like, pay it forward, to give back and pay it forward? So the more that we do that with our time, with our talents, our inspiration, what is magnetic to us, what brings our emotions up, then we can also have empathy and emotion and education to share that with others.
You know, that is so beautiful what you just said. And I think the higher lesson from this and the higher aspect is that your music is there to raise our consciousness. Your intentional music, right? Your conscious music. We all who are listening, I'm sure, are music lovers, and we have different people we listen to, but your music is there for a specific reason. Would you call that revolutionary then? You're there to awaken consciousness.
Yes, we had a woman long time ago in our strategic business growth, and she said, your music is powerful, beautiful, evocative, and revolutionary. It's not like just regular music. This is not new age music. This is progressive classical music. This is healing music. This is music that will live on for ages to come, that we can go and have this into the hospitals. So now the patients would have the headphones on, or even maybe the ER, the technicians and the nurses and the doctors and the surgeons can sit in these pods, and they can go to a touchscreen and they can get an experience and have their piece right in front of them.
That's so needed. So is the foundation to help those in need, the Paul Lloyd Warner Foundation? Is that what you're focused on?
Yes. We've now created our Paul Lloyd Warner Foundation, music that will be here for the ages.
I love that. Well, now that you've all learned and gotten a taste of this music, AJ has a special gift for all of you. And this is really exciting because you're experiencing something that not everyone has had the chance to experience. So AJ, can you tell us what gift you're giving everyone?
Yes. If you go to healingmusic.us or the waterfallmusic.com, there is some wonderful gifts in there. If some of you are still needing to have CDs, you can actually get print-on-demand CDs. There's also where you can click and order, and you can get digital downloads of specific tracks, or you can get full albums and collector sets of albums right at your fingertips.
I love that. So I would say everyone check out Waterfall Music and spread the word, because this is music that can change your life, and not only your life, but those you care about. You can make a bigger difference through the beautiful music of Paul Lloyd Warner. Before we close, I want to ask you, AJ, is there one last message you would like our viewers and listeners to remember?
What I want you to remember is that the healing power comes from within, that our music is a tool to use. And there's many, many different ways we can do it. You can even go on YouTube and look up Paul Lloyd Warner and use this in the time of your sleep, your healing. You might have had a passing of a friend or a family member. Use the music in the background, light a candle, and remember those that have stood tall before you, and now you stand their shoulders tall, and make a difference each and every day.
Thank you. What a beautiful message. Make a difference each and every day, because we all do make a difference. Thank you, AJ. I'm really excited. Go forth and remember that you have a tool now to help yourself and heal others. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.